Michelle Leng, a 25-year-old student, spent a day downtown shopping before boarding a train back home. But after returning, Michelle seemingly vanished without a trace. In a tragic story of horror, family betrayal, and an eerie disappearance, let's dive into the heartbreaking case of Michelle Leng. Born on January 29, 1991 in Chengdu, located in China's Sichuan province, Michelle lived a life full of promise. Like many in China, she had both an English and a Chinese name, Michelle Leng and Mengmei Leng. For this episode, we'll refer to her as Michelle. Michelle was the daughter of Mei Zong, though her father's name remains unknown to the public. She grew up in Chengdu, excelling academically, always striving to achieve high grades. From a young age, Michelle dreamed of studying abroad, specifically in Australia, aiming to attend the University of Technology, Sydney. Hi everyone, I am George and welcome to Town Hill Crimes. In 2011, her dream came true. Michelle was accepted into the university to pursue a degree in business. Her aunt, who lived in Sydney with her husband and their child, welcomed Michelle into their home, offering her a safe place to stay while she pursued her education. She successfully earned her first degree and began studying for a second degree in the same field. But as she was working toward her second degree, tragedy struck. On Friday, April 21, 2016, Michelle finished her studies at the University of Technology, Sydney, and told her friends she was heading into the city for some shopping. She boarded a bus right outside campus, planning to browse stores and maybe pick up some clothes or school supplies. In chilling CCTV footage, Michelle can be seen walking through the bustling Pitt Street Mall, a popular shopping area in the heart of Sydney. These images would be some of the last moments ever captured of Michelle Leng. According to the court's principal judgment, Michelle also met a friend for lunch that day at Sydney's fish markets. However, it remains unclear whether this happened before or after her shopping trip. What is clear is that Michelle later boarded a train heading to Campsie, the suburb where she lived with her aunt, uncle, and cousin. At 4:32 p.m., she tapped her Opal card and exited the Campsie station, caught once again on CCTV for the final time. Shortly after, she was seen on the cameras of her aunt's apartment building at 4:42 p.m. That evening, Michelle called her friends, sounding happy and giving no indication that anything was wrong. She sent her last text message at midnight, and after that, Michelle disappeared. What's most disturbing is that despite living with her aunt, uncle, and cousin, no one noticed she was missing for 3 days. During the time of Michelle's disappearance, her aunt had been away on a business trip from April 1st to April 24th, 2016. Meanwhile, Michelle's cousin spent a lot of time staying over at friends' houses, away from the family apartment. With her aunt out of town and her cousin frequently absent, the usual family routines, like sitting down together for dinner, had fallen by the wayside. These factors tragically contributed to no one noticing Michelle's absence. Michelle's uncle had been the one staying in the apartment most of the time during those 3 days. However, he worked late and slept through much of the day, assuming that Michelle was either at campus or out with friends. On the evening of April 24th, just before 10 p.m., Michelle's uncle picked up her aunt from the Hurstville railway station. As soon as she got home, Michelle's aunt immediately asked where her niece was, concerned because she hadn't been able to reach her by phone. Her uncle, Derek, responded that he didn't know, and that's when panic started to set in. Together with Michelle's cousin, they began searching the apartment, starting with Michelle's bedroom, but found no clues to her whereabouts. They turned to her social media accounts, private messages, and her computer, hoping to find anything that might explain her sudden disappearance. Derek attempted to call Michelle multiple times, but still, there was no answer. It wasn't until the next evening, April 25th, 4 days after Michelle was last seen on CCTV, that Derek and Michelle's aunt went to the Campsie police station to report her missing. Derek informed the police that the last time he had seen Michelle in person was around midnight on April 21st, though he claimed to have spoken with her on the phone at 10 a.m. on April 22nd. After filing the missing persons report, they also notified the Chinese embassy of Michelle's disappearance. Sadly, the search for Michelle would not last long. In fact, she had already been found the day before her family reported her missing, on April the 24th. Around 10:30 a.m. that day, a hiker was strolling along the cliff tops at Snapper Point, enjoying the fresh sea breeze and the stunning views of the coastline. As the hiker paused to take in the scenery, something unusual caught their eye. At first, it was hard to make out, but after a few moments of squinting down toward the waves, the hiker realized what they were looking at. It was the body of a woman floating face down in the ocean, gently bobbing in the waves. The hiker immediately contacted local authorities. After several hours of effort, the police rescue team managed to recover the woman's remains from the water. It was confirmed that the Jane Doe was indeed the missing 25-year-old Michelle Leng. A post-mortem examination revealed the horrifying extent of the attack Michelle endured, a brutal struggle for her life. She suffered 31 separate wounds, some of which were stab wounds, while others were incised wounds, all consistent with a knife attack. Alongside these injuries, Michelle had also sustained numerous blunt force injuries. The fatal wound was to Michelle's throat, a deep cut that nearly severed her larynx, penetrating 40 millimeters into her body. There were 9 wounds to her left hand and 2 to her right wrist, indicating that she fought desperately to defend herself. The remaining 19 wounds were scattered across her neck, head, and torso. While the wound to her larynx was deemed lethal, the extensive blood loss from the other wounds could have also contributed to her death. Tragically, medical examiners determined that Michelle had survived the wound to her throat for some time before succumbing to her injuries. The blunt force trauma injuries were inflicted after Michelle had already passed away, likely during the disposal of her body. Once the DNA results confirmed Michelle's identity, the authorities asked Derek to return to the station for further questioning. This is when things took a suspicious turn. When the police informed Derek that Michelle had been murdered, his response was oddly detached. He simply said, "Oh, okay." His lack of emotion or shock immediately raised red flags for the investigators. The detectives asked Derek to recount his version of events once more. Besides adding a new memory of having gone out to dinner with 2 friends on the evening of Monday, April 25th, 2016, his story mostly stayed the same. However, he also added an unusual level of detail to his original statement, focusing on events from April 21st to the 26th. Derek claimed that he had spent time with a female friend at the casino on April 19th, 2016. He also elaborated on his interactions with Michelle when she came home on the 21st of April, even recalling verbatim conversations they allegedly had that evening. Additionally, he mentioned seeing another female friend in the early hours of Sunday, April 24th, 2016. The sudden shift in Derek's story and the additional details made his account even more suspicious to investigators. Amidst growing suspicions, Derek provided increasingly vague details about his whereabouts. When questioned about where he met his female friends on the route he supposedly drove before picking up his wife, Michelle's aunt, Derek struggled to provide specifics. He vaguely mentioned some intimacy, but soon after requested to speak with the custody manager. He then asked for a lawyer and his family, halting the interview. After consulting with his lawyer, Derek was officially arrested in connection with Michelle Leng's murder. A forensic examination was conducted on him to collect any potential evidence, and once back in the interrogation room, Derek was cautioned about Michelle's murder before the questioning resumed. This time, the police confronted Derek with critical evidence, mobile phone data and cell tower information, which placed him at Snapper Point, the location where Michelle's body was discovered, early in the morning on April 24, 2016. Additionally, Derek's own mother and other family members had confirmed that he had visited his mother's house that same morning, a detail Derek had deliberately omitted from his statements. Despite this, Derek categorically denied ever being in the area that day. In response, the investigators presented him with photographic evidence. A blurry image of a car, closely matching Derek's vehicle, entering the state conservation area near Snapper Point. Derek dismissed the image, claiming it wasn't clear enough to identify the car and insisted he hadn't been to that area in a long time. Derek's car, noted earlier by police when they visited his apartment, couldn't be overlooked. The road leading to Snapper Point, where Michelle's body had been dumped, was dirt road. The accumulation of dirt on Derek's car was highly likely to have come from driving on that road. When pressed further about his car, Derek began to falter, stating he couldn't recall the events clearly and claimed memory loss for that period. Despite his denials, including that he had never visited Snapper Point's blowhole where Michelle's body was found, his credibility was crumbling. When asked if he wanted to provide closure to Michelle's grieving family, Derek remained evasive, only deepening the investigators' suspicions. Following this final interview, Derek was formally charged with Michelle's murder, yet one crucial piece of the puzzle still lingered. Why? The answer began to unfold when investigators seized Derek's mobile phone after his arrest. Using advanced digital forensic technology, they recovered disturbing photos and videos that Derek had deleted, revealing the chilling truth behind his involvement in Michelle's tragic fate. The woman's body found at Snapper Point couldn't be identified at first, so the police issued a press release describing her as an Asian woman, about 180 centimeters tall. As the investigation into the Jane Doe case unfolded, the authorities noticed Michelle's missing person report. This prompted them to visit her family's apartment on April 26, 2016. When detectives knocked on the door of Michelle's uncle and aunt's apartment, they explained that they were exploring a potential connection between Michelle's disappearance and the unidentified woman found at Snapper Point. The officers requested DNA samples for comparison, and Michelle's uncle and aunt readily agreed. However, something felt off during their conversation with Michelle's uncle, Derek. He kept interrupting and speaking on behalf of his wife, which struck the officers as odd. While they noticed his attempts to control the conversation, they didn't think much of it at the time. At some point, though it's unclear whether it was the day Michelle was reported missing or when the police collected the DNA samples, Derek mentioned to his wife that Michelle had been seeing a man from Wollongong. In an unsettling twist, he even suggested that this man may have murdered Michelle and dumped her body. It was an incredibly strange and suspicious comment, especially since there was no evidence at that point to suggest Michelle had been killed. Did Derek know more than he was letting on? When speaking with the authorities, Derek repeated this claim, stating that Michelle had been internet dating and had met a man online. As the detectives left the apartment, they made a note of Derek's car, which was covered in dirt and dust. While this detail wasn't immediately suspicious to them, it would become significant later on. The police asked both Derek and Michelle's aunt to come to the station to provide formal statements. In his statement, Derek painted a picture of Michelle's recent behavior, claiming that she had been using a dating app and meeting people she connected with online. When asked when he had last seen Michelle, Derek said it was on the evening of April 21, 2016, when the two were home alone. Derek recalled that they might have had a salad for dinner and watched the movie Two Guns together. He then described how Michelle went to bed around midnight or 1 a.m., giving an oddly detailed description of the pajamas she had been wearing. He mentioned that she closed her bedroom door, noting that she usually used a rubber doorstop from the inside so no one could enter. The next day, on April 22nd, Derek claimed that when he woke up in the afternoon, Michelle was already gone. He assumed she had gone out to see friends, but when she didn't return that evening, he started to grow concerned. On April 23rd, Derek sent Michelle a text asking if she would be home for dinner, expressing his worry. That same day, Derek mentioned calling his parents, remarking that it had been weeks since he visited the Central Coast where they lived. He added that Michelle had been to the Central Coast before to see the beaches. Derek told the police he spent that Saturday evening on April 23rd moping around, watching TV, and eventually going to bed. On April 24th, Derek said he woke up late again, this time around 5 p.m., before driving through a fast food restaurant to grab dinner. He then picked up Michelle's aunt from the train station. Once they got home, they searched Michelle's room, hoping to find a note explaining her absence, but came up empty-handed. Derek claimed he tried to contact Michelle several times that day and the next, using text messages, phone calls, and the WeChat app, but received no response. He also mentioned that he took a camera from Michelle's bedroom to get a picture of her for the missing person report they filed. Intriguingly, Derek told investigators that he had gone through Michelle's computer and social media accounts, even speaking with some of her friends on Facebook. According to him, these friends told him Michelle had been seeing two men, one from Wollongong and another man, a German national. Derek claimed her friends said Michelle had been using a dating app to meet these men. The entire story Derek spun seemed far too detailed, almost rehearsed. His lack of alarm over Michelle's disappearance was strange. How could someone living with you vanish and you don't seem fazed? Derek's behavior was growing increasingly suspicious. Then, just a few days after Derek gave his statement, the results of the DNA comparison came back, confirming the worst. The Jane Doe found at Snapper Point was, in fact, Michelle Leng. The photos and videos found on Derek's phone showed Michelle in vulnerable situations, such as showering and sleeping. Although Derek claimed he had no sexual attraction to his niece, authorities suspected that the murder was driven by such motives due to the disturbing content discovered. It also lays the groundwork for the prosecution's case, which begins 2 years before Michelle's murder in September 2014. In that month, videos from Derek's phone indicated that he had hidden it in a shared bathroom, capturing a view of the shower area. For privacy, we will refer to Michelle's cousin as Olivia. Olivia lived with Michelle's aunt and Derek. She was the aunt's daughter and Derek's stepdaughter. The footage from September 2014 showed Olivia entering the bathroom, undressing, showering, and getting dressed. This nearly 15-minute video marked a significant sign of Derek's disturbing behavior since Olivia was someone he had helped raise. On September 15, 2015, another video was found, which depicted Derek entering Olivia's bedroom while she slept, where he acted inappropriately. This clip lasted just under 2 minutes and ended with disturbing images. On January 15, 2016, Derek shifted his focus to Michelle, once again hiding his phone in the shared bathroom to record her while she showered. This video lasted over 33 minutes. Then, on January 27, 2016, footage showed Derek sneaking into Michelle's bedroom while she slept in the early hours, engaging in similar acts. This pattern continued as Michelle's aunt was out of town from April 1st to April 24th, 2016, leaving Michelle, Olivia, and Derek in the apartment. On April 21st, Michelle went shopping and returned at 4:42 p.m., with her last message to a friend sent at midnight. Images and videos from Derek's phone indicate that after midnight on April 22nd, Derek had restrained Michelle, binding her hands with duct tape over her mouth, leaving her completely exposed. One frightening photo revealed Michelle's terrified expression. Most images captured her in compromising positions, although it appeared she was not physically harmed at that moment. Derek had confined Michelle to satisfy his own desires. 39 a.m. on April 22nd, when the last photo was taken, and 3:19 a.m. on April 24th, when Derek left the apartment for Snapper Point, he murdered Michelle by stabbing her. While the autopsy could not determine the exact time of death, the evidence clearly illustrates that Derek took deliberate measures to hide his crimes and eliminate the evidence. At 4:14 p.m. on April 22, 2016, Olivia reached the apartment and stayed there for a few hours, leaving at 7:29 p.m. During her time there, it was very likely that Michelle was either dead or tightly bound and gagged. When authorities in the court later asked Olivia about those hours, she mentioned that aside from a short trip to the bedroom, Derek was in the shared bathroom for the entire 3 hours with the shower running. Olivia knocked on the bathroom door once to ask for shampoo, and Derek opened it just enough to hand her the bottle. He told her the bathroom smelled bad and suggested she use the second bathroom, but Olivia didn't recall any unpleasant odor. Importantly, she did not see Michelle at all during those 3 hours. At 7:51 p.m. that same evening, Derek called his father, who noted that Derek seemed completely normal. Surveillance footage confirmed that Derek did not leave the apartment on the evening of April 22nd or the following day, except for 4 trips to the basement to dispose of trash. These trips happened at 4:46 a.m., 5:17 a.m., and twice around 2:30 p.m. on April 23rd. It was suggested that these visits were Derek's way of trying to clean up and get rid of evidence. Michelle's aunt, Derek's wife, informed the police during her interview that upon returning to the apartment, she found it unusually clean. She observed that a large bottle of cleaning fluid, which had previously been full, was nearly empty, and that Michelle's bedsheets appeared freshly laundered. This was peculiar to her, since she typically handled the laundry. Additionally, several bath towels, a roll of black duct tape, and a large suitcase were missing from the apartment. On April 23, 2016, at approximately 6:21 p.m., Derek had a 40-minute phone conversation with his mother, during which he arranged to visit her home near Snapper Point to collect $300 that Michelle's aunt had given to his parents the previous month. Derek's wife, Olivia, returned to the apartment at 7:41 p.m. and stayed until 8:30 p.m. During her visit, she did not see Michelle but noted that Derek was using the computer in the living room. It is believed that Derek remained with Michelle, or her body, in the apartment for the remainder of the night. In the early hours of the following morning, Derek texted his wife to confirm what time she would be arriving at the station later that day. At 3:19 a.m., Derek took the builder's lift to the parking garage and drove out at 3:34 a.m. By that time, Michelle had been murdered and placed in the trunk of Derek's car. He then drove to Snapper Point, intending to dispose of her body. At 3:37 a.m., Derek stopped at a gas station to buy drinks, exhibiting behavior that appeared completely normal. At 7:27 a.m., a vehicle matching the description of Derek's car was recorded on CCTV passing through a state conservation area near Snapper Point. 3 minutes later, Derek's mobile phone connected to a nearby cell tower. Shortly thereafter, Derek arrived at Snapper Point, carrying Michelle's naked body wrapped in black plastic to the cliff's edge. He climbed over the safety rail and threw her body off the cliff, watching it fall 20 to 30 meters into the water below. At 9:19 a.m., while taking several photographs of the cliff and the water, Derek encountered 2 walkers, with whom he briefly conversed. He also spoke to a park officer in the parking lot before leaving quickly. At 10:30 a.m., a passerby discovered Michelle's body in the water and reported it to the authorities. After departing Snapper Point, Derek went to his parents' home to collect the $300 from his mother, where he stayed for about 10 minutes, displaying no unusual behavior. Derek faced charges of 3 counts of committing an act of indecency, 1 count of kidnapping, and 1 count of murder. An additional 21 offenses were considered, including 19 counts of filming individuals without consent for sexual gratification and 2 counts involving the installation of devices for the same purpose. The trial against Derek commenced in late 2017, and he pleaded guilty to all charges. On December 13, 2017, Michelle's mother delivered a victim impact statement through a representative in court. She expressed that while the loss of Michelle Leng has deeply affected the entire family, her own loss is the hardest to bear. Michelle was her only child, and her death has left her feeling shattered and lost. In Chinese culture, children are expected to care for their parents in their old age, and now Michelle's mother has been robbed of the future she envisioned with her daughter. This tragedy has taken a toll on her health, making it difficult for her to cope. Michelle's grandparents are also suffering. Her grandmother has sadly passed away since the murder. Derek was assessed by forensic experts before the trial. He met with a forensic psychiatrist twice in November 2016 and once before the trial to determine if he was fit to stand trial and if there were any defenses available to him. It was found that Derek was fit for trial and did not have any mental illness or abnormality. At 27 years old, he had no previous criminal record. He was born and raised on the central coast of New South Wales and described his childhood as unhappy, marked by bullying and isolation. Derek's brother had schizophrenia, and after losing his job in October 2015, he fell into depression. This led him to develop binge eating and drug use habits, particularly with crystal meth. By late 2015, he claimed to be using about half a gram of crystal meth daily, stating it kept him awake and increased his sexual drive. He said that during the time of Michelle's murder, he was using a lot of crystal meth and felt confused. He experienced memory lapses and blackouts that week, but denied hearing voices or feeling paranoid. Experts noted he was logical and coherent with no signs of psychosis. The psychiatrist concluded that Derek was not psychotic and suggested he may have exaggerated his drug use around the time of the offense. If his claims about the amount of crystal meth he was using were true, he would likely have faced sexual disinhibition and increased aggression, meaning he wouldn't have been as sexually driven as he claimed. Experts found it very unlikely that he was suffering from memory loss when the murder occurred. As a result of his guilty plea, Derek was sentenced to a total of 46 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 34 years and 6 months. He appealed the sentencing in 2019, but it was denied. Michelle's aunt feels a lot of regret for not coming home earlier from her business trip, and it really hurts to read her thoughts on it. Also, Michelle's mom's comments are truly heartbreaking. That's all for today's video. Don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories like this one. I post a new episode of Curious Case True Crime every Sunday.